Yo, welcome to Noob Chess Analysis. Today we're going to be talking about having a defeatist mindset, basically giving up on a game way too early and kind of giving up on yourself. So I have a game here. I want to run through it. The time limit is one move per day, so a ton of time to think about your moves. So I play the London with white. I won't be going through each move. It's just a basic London opening, except for c4, which is the accelerated London. It puts pressure on the center here, and if they end up taking, you can take back with your bishop right away. But he doesn't take, so just natural development. He does play a6, which is a bummer because I love to take and then pin. I love pinning this knight, and you can put a lot of pressure. You can get the knight up there. You can even get the queen up there, and just it can put a ton of pressure early, and it's known to crack people. So I still like this pin, so I'm going to do it anyways. I just used my queen here. He can't really do much about this at this point. He develops his bishop. This is threatening my bishop, this is actually called the Mexican standoff. And I actually made a video about this, which is the danger of opponents opening your H file. So if I were to move back and he were to take, I can open my H file, and this rook has a beautiful view of this H file. It really owns it. And that can be very dangerous because in the London, you have these angles where you can attack either with your queen or your bishop. It becomes very dangerous. So I moved back in the hopes that he would open my H file. He didn't. He just castled, which is fine. I decided to take here mainly because I noticed that this knight only had a single defender, and I could put a relative pin on that with my bishop. So if I move my bishop there, he can't move his knight to defend this pawn, because if he moved, the queen's dead. So I just wanted to test to see if he'd see that, and he did see it. He made the correct move. So I thought, okay, now's probably a good time to castle myself. So I developed my bishop out, and he moved his queen, which was a little confusing. I wasn't sure what he wanted out of this. I decided to just test him and put some pressure on it with my bishop and say, hey, what are you trying to do here? I will eat it. No problem. And then he makes an interesting move, basically moving his queen down. He's threatening this b2 pawn, and there's some issues here for me because first, I can't defend the b2 pawn by moving my queen to c2 because he owns this diagonal. And if I move here, he can take and I can take back, but it does open my a file, but it doubles my pawn. So I wasn't too sure about that. Didn't really like that. So I felt like probably the best idea would be just to take his queen and let him take back with the knight, just because everything else looked like it could get really complicated. So it turns out to be the best move. He takes back with his knight. I decide to castle. He moves his rook over, which is, I guess, fine. Just developing move, doesn't really accomplish much. And I really like the outpost. I just moved my knight up to I think, a good square. So did that, and then he made a mistake here. And this is where it all started crumbling for him, and the defeatist mindset really took over after the next set of moves. I'll just say, before this next sequence, he was taking 5 to 10 minutes per move. So I'd get a notification on my phone that my opponent moved. It'd be about 5 to 10 minutes. So pretty normal timing for a one move per day game. Now, after this sequence, we'll see the defeatist mindset take hold. He starts to tilt a bit, and his move times go from 5 minutes down to 1 minute, and at the end, they go down to 20 seconds. The whole time, he's only down a single pawn. So I'm about to win a pawn here, and it is a little complicated, but I did calculate this out beforehand. I realized that there is one defender on the d5 pawn, and I have a single attacker, but if I can get rid of this defender, then I'd be able to get the pawn. So to do that, I can take this knight, right? And the bishop then has to move. There's no other way to take back except for this bishop. After that, I can then kick the knight out. Now, he has two moves, but this move to c2 traps the bishop. So you can't do that. I just moved my rook over, and he has no move from there. So he'd be down in exchange. So his only move then is to go back to c6, and then I can pick up the pawn. So that's the sequence that happened. Bishop took, I kick the knight out, and then I get the pawn. So very nice. Very nice calculation. I like it. Looks good. And at this point, he started to tilt. And his moves really start to decrease in time. So he threatens my bishop. Right here, I just need to take back, because if I move the bishop, first of all, he can do some funky business where he's opening up my king. And I don't want to do that. And also, I'm up a pawn, so why not? Let's just exchange. Also, it creates a lonesome pawn for him out on the D file. I decide to put some pressure on the rook and also threaten to steal this bishop. So he's got to defend the bishop here. And he does, and I decide to exchange, or I decide to take there, and he takes back. Now, I noticed here that this knight only has a single defender, this pawn, and if I put some pressure, well, I accomplish two things here. First, I get my rook onto the open C file, which is always good. Get your rook on the open file here. And then also, I have a bishop here that can also attack the c6 square. So if I can move my bishop here and he doesn't respond appropriately, I can take back, he takes, and I get a pawn. So just putting pressure on him. He made a kind of crazy move, actually, f5, and that actually opens up a check for me, which I will use in the future. So kind of a dangerous move there. He moves out of the way. I guess that works. I start then thinking, okay, maybe I'll start attacking the pawn. So if I move here, then I have two attackers. He's got a single attacker, and that could be a problem. So just thinking, hey, this puts some pressure here. He wants to exchange rooks. Now, this is an important move. I realize that, first of all, I'm okay exchanging. I'm up a pawn. I'm okay with it. And if he takes back, he has to take back with the knight. And at that point, you see, first of all, I have a check. And then you also have the knight and the rook on the same diagonal. And both are undefended. So that is that's dangerous. So I decide to take with that idea in mind. He takes back with the knight, and then I throw the check in. Now he's got to move his queen. And then I can do two things here, and I thought this one through. I can either move my bishop here, or I can move my rook here and put some pressure on the undefended knight. Based on how quickly he was playing, each move of his was under a minute, I wanted to just put pressure on this diagonal just to see how he'd react. Because I had a feeling he was tilting by the quickness of his moves. So I just wanted to put pressure on right away. So I decided to just move just to see how he'd react. And he reacted very badly. He took 26 seconds to make this move. 26 seconds. He has a full day to think about it if he wants. He's down a single pawn. If you look at the position, he is down. I'm plus 2.6. So my position is good, right? But this game is not over. I'm a 1300. I've blundered way worse, way better positions than this, for sure. You should not be giving up here. And to take 26 seconds to completely blunder away a full piece that is easily defended. You can move your rook here, you can move here, and actually moving your rook here is pretty good because I have some back rank issues. So I actually have to defend myself here. But to just not see that this is completely undefended and I'm putting pressure on it, he just didn't think at all. And the reason he didn't think at all is because he had already given up in his mind. He had already declared defeat. He had a defeatist attitude. He was tilting a bit. He wasn't taking his time to think. And really, he just ended up sabotaging himself. So I got a free piece out of it. And now the game's over. He just resigned at this point. But he was only down a pawn prior to that move. And he took 26 seconds to think about it. Take your time. Think through your moves, especially when you have the time to do it. This is not the time to resign. This is the time to continue fighting. Don't have a defeatist mindset. Don't give up on yourself. Fight. Fight till the end. All right, that's it for me. Check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/yobeebs. All right, have a good day, y'all.